Hey everyone, so really excited. I think today it's our very first live stream. Okay, welcome everyone. We're streaming live from Zoom. I thought this would be kind of wonderful
Hey
because
everyone, so
we get to see each other
really
and
excited.
I think today we get kind of to talk to each other on our live stream here. So what is going to be useful? It's I want you to put any questions that you may have into our live chat function as we go through today. And today, our little sponsors by Stoke. Really excited, and really excited because if you have joining us for the first time at Coaching Changes Lives, I want you to join us for our weekly coaching lab. That's going to happen in just under 8 minutes. So it's led by Haider today, and it's going to be really exciting. So I want you to join that session today. Now, many people have asked me, okay, so you should do some live talk shows, live sessions with all of us. And I thought, when better to do it than on a Sunday or whenever, I'm kind of have a little bit of time in between to just kind of dive in to talk about any matters, whether regarding current affairs, about life, about family, about health, about relationships, about communication, most importantly, about the power of coaching conversations that can change lives. Now, many people have asked, say, there's so many different coaching ideas and methodology out there. How do we make sense of all this? Well, that's why we have this channel here at Coaching Genius Lives. We kind of like test them out. We kind of break them down. We kind of teach. We kind of go through them and see what makes more sense to us. Now, if you like what you're seeing and you say, Jedi, can you give some demonstration to us, show us some examples? I'll be more than happy to give you some examples. And hopefully, in our live streams in the coming up sessions, I will probably have one or two more people joining us, and we have more discussions about different areas of life. Now, today I thought it's going to be fun if we can get to go through this one interesting article, which is on the psychological benefits of commuting to work. I think many people have asked me, Jedi, what about commuting to work, and how do we, as coaches, help employees, workers, leaders, organizations to kind of navigate around this new normal? Because the idea that because of the pandemic that's happened, most of us are kind of like at home and we don't really have much chance to really meet our friends. And what about commute? We used to have this long commute to office, an hour's commute, 45-minute commute, 30-minute commute, or 2 hours commute to work. And it's kind of like part of our lives as we were growing up in our workforce. And now without that commute, what happens to us? So post down in the section below and let me know, what are your thoughts about commuting to work, and what are the psychological benefits, and especially when you're coaching your clients or when you're having interaction with them, what has changed? Now, of course, in the first thought is that when we have no more commute to work, everyone's kind of excited because, wow, we don't have to travel to work anymore. We don't have to rush to work anymore. And it's going to be so fun. So how do we do that? How do we, kind of navigate all that, chaos, all that interesting inputs from the world around us? How do we make sense of that? Well, so today I came across this article which I thought it's kind of interesting. The benefits of commuting to work, and this is something from the Atlantic. I think it's going to be really interesting for us to take a look, and we're going to give a little bit of. We're going to kind of like dissect the article. I'm going to give my thoughts on it, and hopefully we'll hear some of your thoughts as well. And so feel free to post any thoughts you have in the live chat function on our YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to read them out to you guys. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We have, let me just do a share and you can take a look at that here. Okay, so this is the psychological benefits of commuting to work. Now, one thing that's really interesting is here says this, right? Many people, and this is written by Jeremy Usim, right, on July-August 2021 issue, and it says this: many people who have been working from home are experiencing a void they can't quite name. Now, I'm not too sure is really many people who have been working from home are experiencing a void they quite can't name. Is that referring to commuting or is that something else? I think most people, when they think about working, it's not really about commuting, but really more than that. It's really about, hey, what have I missed? What have I, missed in this session altogether? What have I what am I not getting? I guess most of them is the interactions with friends. Yeah, a lot of them has to do with interactions with friends. So let's take a look at this as we dive deeper. So it says here, Back when commuting was a requirement for going to work, I once passed through a subway tunnel so filthy and crowded that the poem inscribed on it, its ceiling, seemed like a cruel joke. Overslept, so tired, if late, get fired. Why bother? Why the pain? Just go home, do it again. Now, the commuter's lament, which adorns a subterranean passage in New York City's 42nd Street station, made the already grim ritual of getting to and fro from work positively Dante-esque, right? So, but no one questioned the gist of it. The commute, according to Nobel Prize-winning economist Daniel Kahneman's research, ranked as the single most miserable part of our day. And a Swiss study held long commutes responsible for systemically lower subjective well-being. So it's kind of interesting. At the starting part of this, it talks quite a number of things about different ideas and different concepts, and I would say a lot more from the Western perspective, right? The idea of the commuters lament or like lamentations, and how when we commute, it's like I have to queue up and I have to wait for the trains to come, I got to wait for the subways to come, and I got to travel a long distance, and after that I have to walk to office, and it's kind of interesting. So in where I come from in Southeast Asia, it's kind of similar as well. We have this idea of the workplace that we got to travel, and it's not exactly easy, and it's kind of far away from us. So that's something really interesting for all of us to consider. Oh, hi there, DB Stories. Let's say hi to post down below to say hi. And Celeste is joining us live now. It's kind of interesting. Hi, everyone. So, let me say hi to you guys. Hi there. Okay, so let me know your thoughts about commuting to work. And so, what we've read so far, it's kind of interesting, right? There's this commuter's lament. So, how many of you out there are having some lamentations over commuting to work? Now, what would you do as a coach if you have to coach someone and they're facing that kind of lamentations about, I have to go to office again, I'm going to spend that 1 hour traveling there, I'm going to spend that 1 hour traveling back, how would you do that? So here it says that adorns a subterranean passage in New York City's 42nd Street station. I was there in New York City a couple of years ago before the lockdown, and I've I've tried a certain portion of their subways, and I would say it's kind of confusing being a foreigner in that land, making sure that I don't get onto the wrong train. I would say for me, the best travel it's by foot. If you have to travel around New York City, everything's kind of arranged neatly. So unless you got to travel quite a distance away, then subway option or even taxis are kind of a great option. But one thing that's interesting here, it says this, right? Made the already grim ritual of getting to and from work positively Dante-esque. What is Dante-esque? It's kind of an interesting word. Now, this word is taken from Dantean, which is a reminiscence of the poetry of Dante, especially in evoking his vision of hell in the Divine Comedy. So if you're not familiar with that, go Google it out and about Dante's story. Really interesting poetry about the whole writings of Dante. So it's kind of like that dream scene, of that hellish, kind of dark scene about what life is online. And so it's kind of interesting the commute that's happening there. So now also it's kind of interesting that they put together a Swiss study. I'm just wondering, are there studies done in the US already about long commutes? Because long commutes in different parts of the world might produce different outcomes. So, although the Swiss study held long commutes responsible for systemically lower subjective well-being, what about the rest, right? So let's take a look at some of the other ideas here. Let's check this out. It says here. Okay, so it says here. And then during the coronavirus pandemic, something bizarre happened. Something bizarre happened. For many of us, the scourge we spent a lifetime bad mouthing as a tedious time waster went away, while essential workers have continued to brave the roads and rails, sometimes suffering punishing commute times. Many others have lived for more than a year in a commuteless world. Some think they never going back to the office, while others are receiving returning to work notices from their employers explaining that come September, butts will once again need to be in the cubicle chairs. So it's kind of interesting, right? Actually, I think that's what's happening right now. There's this sense of like, once the pandemic kind of taper down, everybody has to go back to office. That lamentation is coming back again. So once upon a time, we had this sense that, okay, it's fine. It's still a long way out, but now the reality of us having to go back to work is increasing. In fact, I think Apple announced that there is a going back to the workplace and workforce right away, and it's something kind of interesting that all of us have to kind of feel what's really happening there, right? So what are your thoughts? Post them in the live chat function below, and if those of our friends are watching this live, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that offices and organizations should require the people to go back to office once the pandemic kind of taper down and once more people get vaccinated? Kind of interesting here. And so look at this part here. It says, but here's the strange part. Many people liberated from the commute have experienced a void they can't quite name. I like this part here. They can't quite name. In it, all theaters of life collapse into one. So sometimes I love this part about the idea of poetry in articles. In fact, this article, I love it because when I read it, a lot of poetry, a lot of metaphors, really brilliant. Hi Hazel, welcome to our live chat with Jedi's talk show here. It's Jedi's Omakase, so whatever that comes to my mind, let's talk about it. And I like this part. Let me copy this into the live chat. And what do you guys think about this? All theaters of life collapse into one. What do you think about that? Okay, so share me your thoughts in the live chat function. And there are no beginnings or ends. The hero's journey never happens at home, or what never happens. The threshold goes uncrossed. The sack of Troyes blurs with Talamas math homework. Very, very, very interesting. So let's say this probably sustained hybrid work, the new norm. Maybe a sustained hybrid work. I guess people are thinking about how do we kind of like, okay, let's find a balance. Yes, staying at home, working from home saves time. But there is an element where synchronous action, interpersonal connection, there's a whole nother dimensionality that can't really be replaced by being online all the time. So what is sustained hybrid work? How does it look like for all of us? Let me know in the comment section below. And at the same time, if you're here joining us for the live chat, I encourage you to bring in your little marks here, right? This is the mark of Coaching Changes Lives. I encourage you all to get one of this. Really, really brilliant. If you want to find out more, let me know in the subscribe button and say, hey, Jedi, how do I get my hands on one of these amazing cups at Coaching Changes Life, one of our merch? Now, this cup here, it's a ceramic cup, so it keeps your water cold or hot for long periods of time, and it's shatterproof. So let's dive right in. So it's really interesting here. It says that, and employers, even the ones that have provided the tools for remote work, see cause for alarm. No commute may be hurting, not helping remote worker productively. A Microsoft report warned last fall. After hours chat up 69% amongst users of the company messaging platforms, workers were less engaged and more exhausted. So notice this. There's a rise of engagement virtually, but they become more exhausted, they become less engaged because there's kind of like fatigue that kicks in when we are spending so much time virtually. But is that true? Is that altogether true, or is it something else? Something for us to consider, right? So it says here also in its pre-pandemic heyday, we were narrowly thought of the commute as doing one job, getting us to and from our workplace, our place of work. But clearly the commute was doing something more, something that we failed to appreciate. What was that? What was that altogether? Well, in 1994, an Italian physicist named Cesare Marchetti noted that throughout history, humans have shown a willingness to spend roughly 60 minutes a day in transit. Kind of interesting, in transit, right? And it says here, this explains why ancient cities such as Rome never exceeded about 3 miles in diameter. The steam train, the streetcar, the subway, the automobile expanded that distance, but transit times stayed roughly the same. The one-way average for Americans stands at about 27 minutes. Now in Singapore, where I live in a little part of Singapore, really interesting that from one end to the other end where I tend to work in, I work close to the heart of the city, it takes me roughly an hour journey just via subway, right? So although there's a subway listing that says that it takes about 40 minutes, but by the time I wait for the train, I get on board the train and reach and arrive, and the delays on the train as well, it takes roughly about 60 minutes, excluding the time it requires for me to walk all the way there. Um, yeah, so Hazel posted this and says, really interesting. Working from home, we tend to spend longer hours on our computers and work. Is that true, or do we, if working from office, do we spend more time in the office um, as well, right? So let me know your thoughts. Is the length of hours spent on computers more or less, or do we spend much more time in the office? Okay, does it necessarily mean it's bad or not good? In fact, in transit as well. So let me just type this here. In transit, do we open up our emails, mobile devices to begin work? Something for us to consider as well, right? Do we do that? Or is that just only in the workspace? Something for us to consider. Really interesting. So he says this, as those 30 minutes are known, it's usually understood to describe what people will endure, not what they might actually desire. But if you take the richest people of any era, people who can afford and design their own living however they like, and calculate the transit time between their home and workplace, what do you find? JP Morgan says a roughly 25-minute ride by horse-drawn cab. JD Rockefeller says an elevated ride about 30 minutes. So even the richest people, they would like to travel at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes to their workplace. In a 2001 paper, two researchers at UC Davis attempted to define the ideal commute time. They settled at 16 minutes. To be sure, this was a substantial shortening of study participants' actual commutes, which were about half an hour on average, but it was not zero. In fact, a few wished for a longer commute. Ask why, they ticked off the reasons: the feeling of control in one's own car, the time to plan, to decompress, to make calls, to listen to audiobooks. Clearly, researchers showed that the commute had some positive utility. Does commute have positive utility? Share me in the comment section below. Does commute have some positive utility? What are your thoughts? Let me know. And if you guys want to join in my Zoom call, let me know as well. Come and join in my Zoom call. I would love for some of us to participate in this. And it's gonna be really, really fun. Okay, let's see. Well, some of my friends are messaging me saying, hi there, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our live call right now. So this is, if you're new to our channel, this is Jedi's Omakase, where we spend time just having a live chat about daily matters, about daily lives. And I hope to have people coming on board here where we talk about life, where we discuss, where we have just an open, safe space to really talk about real issues of the heart, and really, really powerful conversations. So notice here, I love this. It says this, right? To decompress. I think there's this idea when we travel, we want to kind of decompress, have a little space of our own to kind of like, hey, you know what? You know, at home, it's kind of, there's so much things that's happening. I just want to get out. I just want to kind of like decompress, just be by myself, and be okay and be comfortable where I am. And that's something going to be really useful for us. Okay. Now, are you guys facing any lag? Let me know in the comment section below. Yep. So looks like this, right? Spare a kind word for the highways and the subways, for the crowds and the filth, for the bagel witch and the jostled coffee. Before the pandemic, researchers have begun to unpack what that utility was. I reached one of them, or John of Harvard Business School, who contrast WeWork and its ill-fated spin-off, WeLife, and pitched in the company's doomed IPO prospectus. WeLife claimed to offer everything you need to live, work, play in a single location, but it never quite expanded beyond two locations. This could have something to do with the limits of grown-up demand for dorm life. Now, the idea of having everything in one place sounds great, sounds exciting, but there's something about humankind, something about mankind that would desire something more than that, something much, much more than that, right? Think about this. If you can have everything in a home, you have your your computer systems, you have your food, you have groceries, everything under one roof. Swimming pool as well, right? Even your blue room. How would that make you feel? Would that make you feel great? We would try to do that because we would believe that if everything was housed under one roof, the childcare centers and everything, people will love it. People will love just being in one place. But somehow, the human being has a certain part of them that still enjoys the idea of some exploration, right? Human beings have this innate curiosity, insatiable need for us to go and explore. If I stay in my room the whole day, it's going to be boring. And in the same way for coaches as well. I always tell coaches, I said, the reason why we want to read broadly, because we don't want to be like a frog in a well. We want to have the exposure. We want to know what are the current issues, what are historical data, know about math, know about science, know about everything. I think it's going to be really interesting, right? I think in Jedi's Omakase, we kind of talk about every single thing under the sun. So here it's kind of interesting, right? So I like this part very much here. This could have something to do with the limits of grown-up demand for dorm life. In Singapore, many of the students do have dorm work. I've never been to a dorm because there wasn't a need. I mean, Singapore, it's not that big. For me to travel to my school and back home to study, it's probably an hour's journey. So it's not that big of a matter. In fact, on my way back home, I could still study. So dorm life was not really something that I really need. Right. Celeste says, yes, that's really, really true. Yeah. So how many of you have experience in the dorm life? Let me know in the comment section below. Now look at this. Gail Shelley wrote about the commute's double life, profiling the specific personalities across different time zones, right? She says this: you get a very strong feeling of two lives with the train a breach. The distance between two lives is explored in a body of research loosely known as boundary theory. I like that. Boundary theory. And this perhaps is where we see the commute's more important job. Broadly, boundary theory holds that however much Facebook encourages employees to bring their authentic selves to work, we have multiple selves, all of them authentic. Love this, love this, love this. Gives me a thumbs up if you like what you read here. Let me copy this statement here. You've got to copy this statement here and put them in the comment section below, right? This is so critical. This is what I've been saying so far in our mastering coaching programs, in all our programs so far. It's really, really, really great. And I've been saying this, it's what we call the multifaceted self. There's so many parts of us. A part of us that, this is a part of us at home, there's a part of us there in office. So I like this idea of a boundary theory. And it might be true. I mean, this is my own personal experience as well. And I think some of you can attest to that something is different when you have to travel to some place, but perhaps maybe not every single day, because you see, the thing about this, if I travel every single day consistently, what happens? That becomes the boredom, because it becomes so consistent. Human beings like a little bit of, if everything is so robotic, so structured, it becomes very, very boring, right? We want to kind of like have some variety. If everything is so boring, life it's such a bore. We want some variety. So which means it's not just transit, it's not just commuting. And I think it's much more than that. I think it's the sense of bringing variety. There's a need for human variety. If everything's the same, it's boring, right? That's why I love doing live streaming. In fact, thanks to all my fans out there who's been posting there, and also if you like to get one of these cups here by Stoke, right, I have a special discount code which I will post in the comment section below. Grab a cup, and if you like some special engraving, let me know as well. We will soon have our little merch. Let me know what merch would you like to see from Coaching Changes Lives, and we'll be doing more of that as well. Now here, really interesting, if it says here crossing between one role and another isn't easy, it's called boundary work. Well, I love this, right? Boundary work, crossing between one and another, and the commute, as Arizona State University Blake Ashford and two collaborators work in a seminar paper on the topic, is actually a relatively efficient way of simultaneously facilitating a physical and psychological shift between roles. Consider the morning drive-in. While superficially a matter of on and off ramps, it also initiates a sequence in which the feelings and attitudes of home life are deactivated, replaced by thoughts of work. This takes time. And if it doesn't happen, one role can contaminate the other. what researchers call role spillover. Really interesting, this idea of role spillover. So if you respond like a manager at home, you might be sleeping on the couch that night. And if you respond like a parent at work, it's weird, right? So he says here, he and his colleagues found that workers who engage in role clarifying prospection during their morning commute, deliberately thinking about plans for the workday, reported higher levels of satisfaction with both their work and home lives than those who were either zoned out or ruminated on personal problems. Very, very important point here, right? Skipping this cognitively difficult task left them in limbo, making each place more stressful. There you have Limbo. Now, in fact, I think one of my upcoming books, or one of the many, many books we try to write, we're still in the process of writing, is called Limbo. Conversational Limbo. That is so important. Sometimes many people get very, very perturbed where the conversations are going nowhere. I love it when conversations have that limbo state. The limbo state is where it's like, oh, it could go in so many directions, and you're just wondering what is the right direction and where best the direction to be heading, right? So that's the limbo state. Now, it also says here, right, technology can help. And in 2017, experiment, a team at Microsoft installed a program called Switchboard on commuter's phone. So before the start and end of each day, the board will pose simple questions. A morning session helped the participants transit into productive work mode, while prompts to detach at the end. How did you feel about today's work? Is there anything else you would like to share? Brought forth something unexpected. People apparently would just spill out their day. Shamsi Iqbal, a researcher who helped design the study, told me in relieving their day, they relieve themselves of it. Wow, I like that. Look at this. In relieving their day, they relieved themselves of it. I think this is so important in any work day. Sometimes we carry our work even to our sleeps, and then we find, wow, so much burden and stress. I think we need to have a psychological break at some point. Say, for example, at 10 p.m., shut it off. Even if people message you at 10 p.m. about work, shut it off. Go and do something else. Get your mind off this, right? Just to really relieve yourself from it. Now, some of us are able to then do what we call multiple dissociative patterneering, which you can learn more in our class, in our cognitive behavior class, or in a mastering coaching class, how to actually separate and have dissociated thoughts. But for most of us, if we can't, then the best way is just to have like a little psychological break. Say, for example, at 9 p.m. or a sacred time, 7 to 8 p.m. I call those moments sacred timeline, very much like Loki and the latest episode. If you guys watch on Disney Plus about Loki's adventure into TVA, the timeline variance authority, but they talk about the sacred timeline. We also have a sacred timeline. There is a part of the entire 24 hours that if we keep that and we hold them sacred for certain things, for learnings, for relationships, for building ourselves, for having a little more introspection, I think those are such critical moments. Yeah. So now, why was this a good thing? Because the ability to detach from a job, Iqbal explained, is part of what makes a good worker. This is so brilliant. In fact, I wish more leaders, politicians, policymakers read this. Too often, policymakers think that human beings are robots, right? You come to office, you go to office, but they never consider quite what are the other facets of the work environment. And it's so incredibly important. The ability to detach from work, from a job, is part of what makes a good worker. New research shows that it's crucial to facilitating mental rejuvenation. Without it, burnout rises, effort increases, and productivity ultimately drops. Now, you know what? I remember many years ago when I was working in the military, I used to have this boss, and he was like several ranks above me. And he practiced this idea, this principle, where he kind of have little breaks in between his work to go for a run, go for a jog, and everything. But yet, he demanded all his staff, everyone below him, that they are not allowed to do what he does. So I'm kind of confused. I can see that he's very creative, very productive, and because he has those micro breaks in between, but all of us downstream, we can't have that. We could only do go off our breaks at before office hours or after office hours, and that kind of stifle our creativity because somehow he can do it, but we can't do it. So this is something really important for leaders to consider as well. If you want to institutionalize a behavior pattern like this, we must allow our people to do it likewise. Now, does it mean that everyone? So one of the dangers that many people face is, does it mean that all my staff get to just go for micro breaks whenever they want, wherever they want? Well, I think there's a way to go about it, right? So, for example, there can be secret time where the entire office is together. Say, for example, in a particular day, this time to that time, and throughout the entire day, people can have micro breaks here and there to do whatever they need to do, just refresh themselves and come back into the moment. Sometimes, one of the things that I really enjoy a lot is that if in the future, or if you're watching this and you say, hey, Jedi, can I sponsor Coaching Changes Lives for a building? One of my thoughts is having a building for Coaching Changes Lives where coaches, clients, people, young and old, can come together and they can really talk about life. And there is a swimming pool, there's a gym. Can you imagine that if you're working and you have maybe a 10-minute break, you dive in for a swim, do a 10-minute swim, and come back up. That refreshment is so much more potent, so much more viable, so much more energetic than, say, for example, 10 minutes in the pantry, right? So compared 10 minutes just doing a real physical break from the office, going down for a swim, and then coming back up feeling all refreshed, as compared to having 10 minutes of coffee break or 10 minutes of smoke break. You find that those habits like coffee break, pantry break, they don't amount much. They're just stimulants. They're not really helping the people to kind of have a better sense of whole of themselves. So those are some considerations for us watching this. Now, let's go back to this article. See, this article is so amazing. There's so many components here for us to break down. Now, it says here as well, but of all this research was done, it was aimed at helping commuters commute better. Now we have to ask, what if the commute never comes back, or at least not every weekday? Can we replace it? So when I gave up my own commute some years ago, I came to realization the smell of the cafe car, the gathering of the shoulder bag, the clack of the shoes on the lobby floor, all the sensory cues saying you're a professional journalist arriving in Manhattan for work would be gone. After a brief period of jubilation, I began to wonder if getting to work was the same as getting to work. A spacecraft approaching a planet too fast can bounce off the atmosphere right back into space, and you can rearrange a lot of desk items and check a lot of sports scores before realizing you're spaced out too. So if I was going to replace my commute, I have to get strategic. I developed a set of tricks matching my surroundings with the task at hand seemed important. Deep research was done in the stacks of nearby library, writing in coffee shops, commuting directly from the desk to the diner table was a bad idea. A run or stroll outside first, but no strolling into the AM mornings. You walk like you are late for something. Above all, an underdressed day is an unproductive day. So if a deadline looms, out comes the writing blazer in office attire you can't take out of the trash or water the lawn without a strong feeling that you ought to be doing something else like your job, right? See, this is kind of interesting. These are people who have been born in an environment, in an era that working, traveling, commuting is such an essential part of their lives. Now, but what about the young people who were born into a digital world, who were born into working remotely? The psychological impact will be definitely different, right? So imagine right now you replace yourself with someone young and who starts off their career straight away into a workforce where people work from home, where people have a distributed workforce. You work with gig economies, you work with people from all over the world. Now, your psychology and your anchors are probably different. So what this guy is describing here are a lot of anchors that has built over time in his life, right? So I was pleased to find an entire academic paper called Enclosed Cognition. This is something that I talk about in my LinkedIn account. By the way, if you guys have not subscribed to my LinkedIn account, do click connect with me on LinkedIn. Share me your thoughts, and I'll be there to connect with you on LinkedIn as well, right? So give me a thumbs up. That backed me up on this. When people are asked to do difficult tasks involving a visual concentration, they make many half as many errors if they put on a white lab coat. This is really, really interesting. I would love to do this experiment as well, right? The coat has a symbolic power, the paper says, which is not realized until one physically wears it and thus embodies the clothes. Now, how did the rest of my routine hold up? I sought the advice of Ezra Bookman, a corporate ritual designer based in Brooklyn. His work includes coming up with ideas like funerals for fiat projects. Every single conversation I have with a corporate client is the same, he told me. Employees are burnt out and have no separation between home and life. Key. That is key. Very key. Yeah, very, very, very important. Give me a thumbs up if you guys are still with me. Let me know in the comment section below. Say, yeah, this is great. This is good stuff, right? Let me know how you guys are doing because man, I love this article because so much things we can talk about here. Now, naturally, he has come up with some rituals to replace the commute, marking the beginning and end of each day. The ideas he proposed to clients include lighting variations, warm-up stretches, cell phone-free walks, as he demonstrated to me over Zoom, shrouding your computer in fine blue cloth when you log off, as if too needs a good night's rest or sleep. Rituals are friction, he told me, like commute, they slow us down. They are so antithetical to most of our lives, which is all about efficiency and speed. One ritual that worked for Bookman was changing his laptop password to deep breath. It helps me to locate myself in the day and says, hey, okay, what am I doing here? I think this is so critical. This reinforces my thoughts and my theory about the human nature. If we are doing operations the same way again and again and again and again, it gets boring, even if we are efficient. Why? Sometimes the tension, sometimes those frictions, sometimes those little mistakes are what brings life. What makes the human life living, right? If everything is so perfect all the time, it's kind of weird to be living in a place like this. I remember one time there was a movie, The Truman Show. Everything was perfect for Truman. Look around him, everything was perfect, and it really baffles him. It's just kind of really shocking for him, right? So Iqbal, the Microsoft researcher, said that this was the same idea behind the virtual commute that her company had just released. An on-screen tap on the shoulder, ready to leave for the day, signals when that it's time to knock off. The shutdown sequence has you bookmarked what you were working on. It invites you to take a minute to breathe and rest, in sync if you like, with a calming meditation video because work is done. All of which is to say, with meditation, exercise, costume changes, and chat box, you too can replicate what the commute did for you. In the meantime, let's find spare a kind word for everyone, for something that we've spent our lives abusing, for the highways and the subways, for the crowds and the field, for the bagel wage, for the jostle coffee, for the traffic tie-up, and the terrible screech in the tunnel. Two optimistic subway vendors did in 10 years ago. Tired of the underground poems, eternal reaping, they briefly replace why the pain with so much gain. Wow, what a brilliant article. Do you guys love that? I love this, because it's just so much interesting insights into the world around commuting. And I kind of feel like what this author was kind of sharing in his ideas about commuting to work and how that is so critical in his own journey in his own life. And I think that's so powerful, right? So powerful. um, Share me your thoughts. What do you think about this article after going through this? I think for me personally, I think commuting, it's a great element, and I don't think that commuting should be done every single day. I think there should be an element of variety. As human beings, we love variety, but again, there is the balance that we're trying to seek. From the organization perspective, if I have variety every single day, it's going to be a nightmare to kind of maneuver everything, right? So it could be well, I'm saying it could be that organizations could institutionalize maybe a Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays in the office, maybe a Monday, a Friday, a Saturday, Sundays work from home, kind of sequence, right? And it can kind of give like a really focused 3 days to get us together, discuss, work together, leave, work asynchronously and come back again. I think that process is so critical to kind of go deeper. um, and commuting the work does produce something. Sometimes I love commuting work because I'm able to put on my Apple Watch, listen to my audiobooks, and kind of reflect a little bit about life and reflect a bit about my own personal learnings and growth. And I think this is so important as well. And I love what YouTube can do for us. One of my dreams is that at Koji Jin's Lives and our channel here, we grow to 10,000 people, subscribers. So help me to get there to 10,000 subscribers. Share this with a friend, and I think I want to do more and more of such omakase chat. It's a little bit like Oprah's chat or Ellen's chat, where we talk about life, right, from the perspective from the East. And I think there's so many talk shows from the West, and I feel that there needs to be more voices coming from the East and talk about life from our lens. And I think lens from where I am from in Southeast Asia, it's a really unique lens. It's cosmopolitan. It's multi-diverse, multiracial, multi-religious, and there's so many communities here, so many cultures here. We have to learn to live with each other. right? And now sometimes, there will be conflicts, sometimes there will be mismatch of expectations, but I think that's what being human is all about: learning to adapt, learning to appreciate, learning to acknowledge, learning to love. I think that's key, right? Love is love, and I think it's so important for us to really share that heart and passion to love one another, like our neighbors, right? Do we love our neighbors as ourselves? And even if our neighbors are not like us and our neighbors have totally different beliefs for us, can we choose to accept them for who they are? I think that is so important for us. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about the omakase? What do you think I should be talking about in the next session, in our next live chat? And I think the next chat, probably if I have time to kind of set up my cameras, you probably can see me maybe putting some coffee, some tea, preparing some stuff, and I'll probably do some like baking as well. I think it's going to be really fun. Maybe do some live stream of baking together, and we kind of do this all in tandem together. It's really, really fun. So share me your thoughts. What do you think that we should be talking about in our next episode in Omakase? This episode, we focus a lot about commuting, the idea of commuting, the idea of traveling around, the idea of really taking time. What's the new normal going to be like, and what's the future for workers, distributed workforce? What would that be like for them? Yep. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, share this with a friend, subscribe to our channel, and I want to see you in one of our classes at Coaching Changes Lives. Right, we have a series of classes: mastering coaching, team leadership coaching, coaching intelligence, public speaking. We have classes on health, and I have my own personal one-on-one coaching, which is called Brave Your Story. A very powerful coaching experience to really help individuals to really brave the story, the song. Everyone has a story worth to tell. And I believe that as we reach out to more people, as we have more lives impacted, I hope these videos will touch the lives of not just coaches, but of every single life that's out there. Okay, so there you have. I hope this video has inspired you. And until next time, this is Jedi here, Coaching Change Lives. I look forward to seeing you in our upcoming sessions and videos. And don't forget, every single week we have new videos popping up. So stay tuned and hit the subscribe button because you don't want to miss anything out.